make Skull Valley great again.
Hi everyone, I'm Robin Sewell, and today on Arizona Highways,
we're taking you about 12 miles outside of Prescott, down a winding and scenic highway to the small community of Skull Valley.
The store is closed, the cafe burned down, and the gas station doesn't sell gas. But other than that, it's very vibrant.
It's now a skeleton of what was once a thriving ranching community 100 years ago.
Homesteaded by Pearl and Van Dixon in 1906.
I have to admit, none of us at Arizona Highways Television had ever heard of Skull Valley. But the folks who live here are helping to put it back on the map.
We brought Polo back.
Yes, you heard that right. This is the home field of the Skull Valley Polo Club. You'll also find the most remote brewery in Arizona.
A lot of people will drive out here in the middle of nowhere to have a beer.
Skull Valley may not sound like much of a destination.
This is our little library.
But once you're here, you might have a hard time leaving.
I was trying to take her back to Texas, but this is as far as she would go. Skull Valley.
As we're finding out, Skull Valley is all about digging in your heels and kicking up some dust.
The worst thing we hear is, we're going to tell everybody about it.
At the higher levels, it's much rougher. At our level, it's very much a gentleman's sport, but it's still rough and tumble. It's still a lot of bumping, a lot of elbowing, a lot of knees.
Now I know what you're thinking. Is that a polo field in the middle of nowhere? And are they actually playing a polo match? The answer is yes and yes. This is the Skull Valley Polo Club.
This is where a lot of people in Arizona learn to play polo.
Polo may sound like a lot of pomp in high society, but it can be rough and dirty.
People get hurt all the time. Everybody that's on the field has got broken bones at some time or another. There's usually a death or two every year, which is surprising, but yeah, in some form or another.
They say polo is a gentleman's sport. But don't tell that to this offensive player, or Daisy, her horse.
If you're on a good horse, you can still battle with a man double your size, so it's actually pretty empowering.
It's a short field. It's about 60% of what a normal field is. So this field is 230 yards long. A normal field's about 300 yards long by 160 yards wide.
But to truly tell the story of the Skull Valley Polo Club, we have to go back a century, when Van Dixon Ranch trained polo horses for Hollywood's elite.
He trained polo ponies, actually, for the LA Polo Club back in the early 1900s.
A man by the name of James Van Dixon and his wife Pearl homesteaded this ranch in 1906. Their horses hold double duty, first as ranch horses.
Then they would take them down here to the railhead and ship them off from Skull Valley by rail to Los Angeles.
That's where they played polo for one of Hollywood's most famous cowboys.
Several actors used his ponies. Among them is Will Rogers, I think Spencer Tracy.
At the end of the season, they'd be sent back, once again work on the Van Dixon Ranch and train. Fast forward to 1999. That's when Paul and Carolyn Harris bought the 600-acre ranch.
We fell in love with it, the country.
Well, he drove in here and he looked and he said, "Carolyn, this is the place, get out the checkbook." And all I could see was squalor holler. There was brush all the way to the road, and the house was a shack, but he could see what he could make out of it. And actually, I really respect his vision. So I got out the checkbook. We didn't even know there was polo here before, that there'd been polo here 100 years before. And he just saw that he could make a polo field there, but I had no idea that it could be like this. He probably did.
Well, they bought the ranch, and after learning of its history, they decided to save the name.
We love the history, and we live the history here. And we promote the history, and we appreciate the history.
So this developer from Texas decided to continue not only Van Dixon's history, but his own. Paul was a polo player back in Austin.
I've always fooled with horses and messed with them, and always played polo.
So why Skull Valley?
I was trying to take her back to Texas, but this is as far as she would go. Skull Valley.
Paul no longer plays polo, but he does officiate.
I feel the game, and I feel the infractions. I see them as they materialize there on the field. And it is a feel. You have to feel the game.
Paul and Carolyn also host weddings at the ranch and are building riding trails for the horses, hoping to add another 5 miles.
I'm a horsewoman, and I've done dressage, 3-day eventing, and jumping. Right now I've got a quarter-horse mare.
But the couple has another passion.
Make Skull Valley great again.
They've seen their small town get even smaller over the last 20 years.
The store is closed, the cafe burned down, and the gas station doesn't sell gas. But other than that, it's very vibrant.
And they're doing their part. The Skull Valley polo season runs from May through October. They invite anyone to come and watch.
We say bring your lunch and your drink and a chair.
This is where a lot of people in Arizona learn to play polo.
Polo player needs 3 to 4 to 6 horses. Here you could get by with 2, 3, 4, depending on what kind of polo you're playing, because we just play 4 chukkers, which is 4 periods.
Hi, my name is Chelsea Groves. I play up here in Skull Valley, but I live in Chandler. Number 1 is the offensive player. Usually I will go up for the pass and the number 3 or number 4 will pass it to me so that I can score the goal. So it's actually a really great position. I started in college at University of Southern California, and ever since I've been hooked, so 10 years later. In the summer, I play up here, but in the fall, I play down in Scottsdale at Westworld or in Casa Grande. There's another field down there. I've always been a horse girl, and I'm addicted to horses, but I think the special thing about polo is that it's a horse sport that you can play as a team.
It's a short field. It's about 60% of what a normal field is. So this field is 230 yards long. A normal field's about 300 yards long by 160 yards wide.
I would say you get a lot more time hitting the ball because it's a smaller field, so each player gets more opportunities to hit. That's a really great thing about this field. When you're on a horse that you really like, you feel like you're one with the horse. I think your relationship with the horse is really important to your game.
I'm David Barnett. I came up from Scottsdale, Arizona. You've got indoor polo, which is arena polo, and grass polo. They use different balls, and if you'll see, the ball that we're using is a hard plastic ball about the size of a baseball. As you learn how to hit it, a good pro can hit it 120, 140 yards probably. Most of us probably hit it 60, 80 yards. Everybody plays polo right-handed. It's in the rule books, you can't play with the left hand. It's primarily because of the way that you pass other horses when the ball is in play. It usually takes people 2, 3, 4 years before they can even start to hit the ball on this side. And you hit the ball on the side of the mallet. So it's not this way, and you can see it's tapered. So it's tapered so it goes down this direction, which is about where you want to hit the ball, which is just in front of the horse's foot. When you first start, everybody just starts hitting the ball walking. As you get better, you start playing full speed, and you can hit the ball as fast as the horse is going. It actually gets easier as you go faster sometimes, because the horse smooths out as you go faster, and it's not quite as bumpy.
It involves the team aspect of like soccer, basketball, more traditional sports with horses, so 2 really great things for me.
Arizona Highways Television is brought to you by Arizona Public Service and the Arizona Office of Tourism.
If they ask me, I always recommend an RP IPA.
Usually a Bob and Gary's Ride Porter.
Well, you know what they say, it's noon somewhere. Here at Barnstar Brewing Company, it's always Saturday or Sunday, and it doesn't open until noon.
We do this on the weekends, 12 to 5, and it's just awesome.
This is the most remote brewery in Arizona.
We can't put up more signs because the county won't let us, and we think if we say it's going to be 6 miles down this dirt road, they're going to turn around and go back. Only the adventurous show up.
And that's just the way Sandy and David Bigelow like it.
We moved out here from Southern California after 30 years of a high-stress career, and I asked David, well, what do you want to do when we get out there, because we're too young to retire, and he said, I'm going to open my own microbrewery.
I think that's the first time you asked me what I wanted to do.
Probably.
Actually, yeah,
I think you're right.
Okay.
I told him, we are going to be just a production brewery. We're never going to have people on this property, and nobody would ever drive all this way to have a beer, so that's not a viable business.
But if you build it, they will come. And for the first time in their marriage, Sandy says she had to admit she was wrong.
A lot of people will drive out here in the middle of nowhere to have a beer.
On average, 250 people a day. That's a lot of thirsty travelers.
We've had people from Wisconsin and Michigan and New York.
Out of the country as well.
And out of the country, we've had Dublin and Germany and England.
Unbeknownst to us, we have a lot of people that want to drive all the way up from the valley, from Phoenix area, which is probably about a 2-hour drive. We get a lot of people from San Diego.
Yeah.
Crazy, we get people from Oregon.
And of course, they have their locals.
I feel kind of like we're Cheers, like where everybody knows your name and people show up and they go, Norm!
And the feeling is mutual.
You get a family and you meet people from everywhere.
The friendship out here is world class. I don't want to make the beer second, but the friendship and the owners and the outdoors just make it what it is. The beer's great.
We love Barnstar the size that it is and the ability to meet with everybody and talk with everybody and bring friends together.
They like to say they're the little brewery with a big taste. They also have some big names.
Saloon Girl Red, which is the best amber ale you'll ever have in your life. And I have to say Outlaw Stout.
And many of the dozen or so craft beers they have on tap are named after their loyal customers.
Bob and Gary's Ride Porter, Darling Deb's Peachy Wheat, one of our great neighbors down the street. Then we've got Hot Phyllis Red Wrangler. Who knows, we might even name a beer after you guys.
Yeah.
I don't know. Roundabout Robin has kind of a nice ring. Or an Arizona Highways hopper?
Right here, it's a original Picasso.
Barnstar's brewing up more than just beer.
This is our little library.
Wait until you get a look at this private collection of rare books and a drawing by a modern art master. All of this just feet away from the Prescott National Forest. Arizona Highways Television is brought to you by Arizona Public Service and the Arizona Office of Tourism.
This is our little library. So this is all first edition rares signed by the authors here. Henry Miller, Walt Whitman, Bukowski, Hemingway. Love Hemingway, I got original Hemingway. This is all Hemingway right here. Sculpture and art, photography. Right here, it's a original Picasso. It's one of one, he drew it himself. And yeah, I got it in London around 15 years ago. And doesn't every little shed in the middle of nowhere deserve a Picasso, really?
And what better place to hang a Picasso than on the edge of the Prescott National Forest?
We're very civilized out here.
Meet Jason Johnson, Director of Operations and Barnstar Brewing Company's third partner.
You don't see one building, you don't see anything at all out here, which is just fantastic.
Like Sandy and Dave, he was fed up with California and the corporate rat race, but too young to retire. So, moving to the middle of the Arizona desert, seemed to be like a great solution.
I met Dave and Sandy out here, and at home in Orange County, we lived 3 blocks away and never knew each other.
Jason recently built this library on the property, just a few yards away from the tap room.
Sandy and I are voracious readers, and so we just wanted to have a little space to come out and, you know, pour a glass of wine or a beer and do a little reading and relax. All this stuff was in boxes down the road at a friend of mine's ranch, and I had moved them from Santa Barbara. I've just been collecting books, you know, first edition, signed, rare ones, and, you know, since I was 16, I think.
It's a collection he is proud to show off.
Casanova's original biography, and that's from 1912, I think. And the artist who did all the artwork in this collection here was the best woodcut artist from the turn of the century. This is a first edition Recognitions. This is first edition. This is a first edition Frederick Exley. This is Henry Miller.
He's also proud to share his rare finds.
A lot of our regular customers and friends will give them the key and they'll come out here and just sit down and have a beer and just kick it. Just a great spot. The sunset's right there and we just sit out here and listen to music. It's just the most relaxing place on the planet.
This is where a lot of people in Arizona learn to play polo.
We fell in love with it, the country.
We make beer in the middle of nowhere, and we get to do this and we get to live like this, and it's just amazing. I love it.
The worst thing we hear is, we're going to tell everybody about it.
Who knew? Skull Valley, Arizona is a destination and a hot spot for hops and horses.
We're very civilized out here.
We'd really like to see Skull Valley be the quaint little Mayberry RFD place that it was. And it was such a great spot for people, for hikers, for bicyclists, for motorcyclists, all of these people to come through. And I would just love to see it become fantastic again like it was.
Make Skull Valley great again.
Arizona Highways Television is brought to you by Arizona Public Service and the Arizona Office of Tourism.
You know, here on Whiskey Row, there used to be more than 80 saloons right on this stretch of road.
The great thing about Whiskey Row is that you don't have to go far to find a drink.
They call it stumbling distance.
And that's the point.
One of the most famous bars here on Whiskey Row is the Birdcage. However, the original bar is actually a few doors down, but in 2012 it burnt to the ground in a devastating fire. But then the community rallied together, it was rebuilt, and now it is stronger than ever. Here at the Birdcage, wild turkey is either a shot or got shot.
The Birdcage actually gets its name from all the stuffed birds mounted throughout the saloon.
The Birdcage was named that because my father-in-law, Bill Stamm, in 1969 had an extensive bird collection, taxidermied birds, and some of which were extinct even at that point in time, that were displayed throughout the Birdcage in cases. We had about 1/8 of the collection at the Birdcage Saloon, which were in enclosed cases that stood along the walls. And during the fire, they were all completely destroyed. The rest of the bird collection is at the Smithsonian Institute.
The Birdcage is one of the longest running bars on Whiskey Row, but this isn't the original location.
On May 8th, 2012, fire gutted the bar.
The firefighters heroically cannoned water, over 1 million gallons of water, over the roof that eventually caved in as we were watching. And then the flames came barreling out of the front of the building. It was devastating. It took us to our knees. The fact that the back bar survived is just incredible. I mean, seeing all the destruction within the building.
But like a phoenix rising from the ashes, so has the birdcage.
If it wasn't for the love of this town that embraced us and brought us back up, we would not have been able to rebuild. Whiskey Row has got a lot of heart.
While Prescott may not have the infamous reputation as the town too tough to die, they do have their share of tough old birds.
What would Whiskey Row be without the birdcage? You know, seriously.
Arizona Highways Television is brought to you by Arizona Public Service and the Arizona Office of Tourism.
You can't get there by car, just by foot and horseback. But no need to cry, just ride 'em and whine.
Pick the reins up in the left hand.
All right.
Okay, slide the right hand down.
Well, of course, Sonoyta historically is cowboy country, and we still have ranches. But when you're riding out here, you're riding on a very big ranch, one of the biggest in the state of Arizona. And so you're riding through cows. So you have that whole Old West experience while you're riding here.
We found a great mix of the Old West and the New West, cowboys and Arizona wine.
We do guided trail rides here in Sonoyta, 3-hour rides, the shortest ride we do. Full day rides, multiple day pack trips, and we do this ride, which is a wine tasting ride. So it's a 3-hour scenic ride to Sonoyta Vineyards. The package includes lunch, wine tasting, bottle of wine for each person, and return transportation. I think first-timers, first of all, are so amazed at the scenery. We hear comments like, feel like I'm in a Western movie. Well, that's because many Western movies were filmed here, so you really do feel that.
Well, the first time I came out from Tucson, we come through the mountains, and as soon as you go over this certain place, the trees kind of like in, and it's just grass. They call it the grasslands. And it was just amazing, you know, the whole sight of it, blowing in the wind, if the wind is blowing, but even if not, it's just amazing.
So when they get on a horse, they get on one of our horses, and they ride through the beautiful oak trees and down into the canyons and up on the ridges and look around and see these 9,000-foot mountain peaks that surround the Sonoyta Valley. They see themselves in the Old West. They see themselves in a movie just as it was.
Well, that's the most exciting part of my life out here. I ride horses, and it's just, you know, you can ride into the pine trees, into the grasslands, into everything, and it's like being in the Old West, and I love that.
And then, of course, once we get here, now it's the new Sonoyta. It's the wineries.
No matter where you ride, it's beautiful. You can be up high in the mountains, low in the prairies, whatever you're doing, the view is just phenomenal.
I think it's the romance, you know, the romance of wine tasting with the romance of horseback riding, just putting both of those together.
Whether you're looking for a true tasting room experience, an outdoor adventure, or a family outing, Southern Arizona's wine country has something to toast and talk about. Thanks everyone so much for joining us. I'm Robin Sewell, and we'll see you on the next Arizona Highways.
Arizona Highways Television is brought to you by Arizona Public Service and the Arizona Office of Tourism.